righty. Thank you for being here. One thing that I was tempted to share during the last panel is some of my most enjoyable lunches are to eat guacamole and listen to Kurt and David. So it's worth the price of any show if you're ever interested. This is panel number 3, yes. Healthy Aging and the Role of the Family History Community. And within the family history community, many of you know that we have SLAMs, and it's a unique group, and we'll talk about those in just a moment, but we're going to start right here first with Charity and ask you to introduce yourself and your specialty, and then we'll go to John and to Matt and to Shelley.
My name is Charity Rouse. I am the Director of Local History for the Spartanburg County Public Libraries in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We are a regional, strong library in the Southeast. I don't compete with the big guys, but it is my favorite library. And we do genealogy, local history, archives, and special collections out of our room that houses a couple of departments. The math works, really.
John Dougan, Missouri State Archivist, actually technically the Record Services Director for the Secretary of State's office in Missouri. Not only do we do the state archives there, but we also do records management, and we have a local records division that works with government records across the state.
And I'm Matt Weismantel. Currently serve as chair of the NGS Delegates Council. I guess in real life, I'm retired, which is a good thing for this meeting, and formerly was involved in communications and student affairs in higher education.
And I'm Shelley Murphy. I'm here representing the International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina, which is now a year old. And so hopefully folks will get to see it. My position there is a consultant on community education or genealogy education. So you'll hear more about that as we answer the questions.
All righty, thank you very much. So I mentioned SLAMs, and I'm going to go ahead and start off with Matt. Matt, why don't you help us understand what they are?
Well, it's been mentioned once already, but I'll come back to it now again and say that SLAMs is an acronym basically standing for Societies, Libraries, Archives, and Museums. And in this case, we're talking mostly about those involved in genealogical areas. I tried to sit down before and think through a little bit about commonalities there and how that could impact in our discussions later on about what that would mean for helping out with creating programs that would tie in today's themes. But some of the things that come out of there, of course, is that all of them tend to have repositories, including our societies. They have genealogical information. Of course, other ones like libraries, museums, and archives often have much more. All provide educational programs for genealogists. Often, in many cases, this could be more true for societies in certain instances, but in other areas, it could be the libraries or the archives providing that in much more detail. And also putting together training programs that really focus on specific areas of expertise that either the organization or the archives of the libraries have. All depend on volunteers for many projects. Societies tend to be across the board, helping to host meetings and programs, facilitate or actually provide facilitation for those programs and activities. And also, and I think this is important, they also provide opportunities for leadership positions and for people to take on roles that help move the not only the field, but also their own society forward and help bring people together. And I think that's an important role that really comes together underneath that area. And lastly, and I think this is true for all areas, especially those in societies that might have a library connected with them, but also putting together specialty user guides, specialty information that helps people really understand what their collections are about, what their programs are about, what things they do there. And by doing that, I think they make themselves more accessible to the community. And that's something that I think is helpful to our discussions today.
All righty, thank you. So Shelley, you're sitting there next to him, so let's go ahead and go in that direction. When I Google your name, I see education, teaching, training, supporting in the genealogical community. So you've got a little article you're known by, so therefore what?
So what?
So what? Okay.
Well, first thing I want to point out is, and this is me personally, I think genealogical research is a form of brain exercise. And we all wear it proudly, right? I mean, very proudly. And I actually retired in December 2018 and was enjoying that check coming every month. And then a couple places had called, said we have these projects. So I went back to work full-time and doing some consultant work. So one of the things I think is important, and I want to say I represent SLAM, societies, libraries. The only one I'm not really connected with as far as engaging more is the archives. And so I'm making that as a point, but also museums. Most of us are connected locally, nationally, but maybe not connected on the archival process. But at the museum, we actually have an archivist there working in our Center for Family History. So again, more engagement there. But I think the opportunity for what we offer, and I will speak as the Center for Family History at the museum and the things I do with the So What, is really educating people how to ask questions. But if I take it back to what Kurt was talking about and everyone else on the former panel was about listening, and I just say, gotta know when to shut up. Ask the questions and then let them talk. So coming back to the So What, there's a few of us here that are associated with MAGGIE is the acronym for it, Midwest African American Genealogy Institute. I teach that class. And it's an analysis. It is asking the question, well, so what, David? I got a Rencher in my family, and it's David Rencher. He's 72. And this, that, and the other. Well, so what? What's next? What is that telling me? What should I be asking? Or if I'm missing information, well, so what? I don't have a birth location. Who has that birth location? So the so what is something very silly, but it'll keep us going and just saying, well, so what? I got all of this. What do I do with it? Where do I put it? And then, of course, following, the genealogical proof standards with the 5 steps and so forth, and take it that way. And so it's just something very simple just to keep the engagement of us and our minds active, that we're not just paper gatherers. We're analyzing and then, of course, sharing the story. Okay.
I love that. You've got the opportunity to do it for any age group in there. So
Yes.
Perfect.
Kids love it.
Okay. Now, John, you're in a unique position. You were at Tennessee for a number of years. Last 17 or so, you've been in Missouri. But in addition to what you're doing there for the state government, you've been involved with public and private opportunities. Have you had any specifically that have helped out seniors and benefited them?
Well, I think that prize probably goes to Family Search. They have kind of been the model that both places that I've worked, that we've used with our volunteers. So everything that I guess I could say about the work that we do with volunteers, senior volunteers mostly, would be things that Family Search has been the industry leader in that. And we've worked closely with Family Search on a lot of these projects as well. I want to frame this maybe. I think I know what the other 2 things are, though, that are the most boring jobs. So we use volunteers for not only for imaging, but we also use them for document prep, which I don't know which one of these is worse, and online indexing as well. So, but the document prep for sure, where they're flattening records and cleaning them and pulling staples and all those kinds of things. It's a very, very thankless job. And so we've actually found that our most productive volunteers are not genealogists, so we don't discriminate with our volunteers as well. And retired school teachers are about 50% over the last 25 years I worked. And some of them actually come to genealogy through volunteering with us. So, they're in a church group with someone who's a volunteer who gets recruited, and then it multiplies like that. I want to talk a little bit, because I want this to be relevant to our SLAM members, about online indexing. We still do a lot of that. And so we right now have about 600 volunteers indexing year of death certificates that we just put online about a week or so ago, and they're about done with it. And so you have to be actually kind of prepared for very productive volunteers and do that back end work if you're going to do those projects as well. We use a platform that hasn't been mentioned today called From the Page. It's a transcription service. It's a really great tool that go out and check that out. Again, it's something that we have found to be very effective on difficult indexing projects and transcription projects and those kind of things as well. And then I can't say enough about our volunteer corps. When the 1940 census came out, our volunteer group switched from our projects to the national project, and I think they were the top indexing group, and that's been a while ago now. They participated in the 50 project as well. So we use them for docents, and we even use them. We have a couple of ladies who basically are volunteer coordinators. So that's their project. I mean, like, we give them their project and we stay out of the way. So anyway, so that's what I'll say about that. But again, we learned much of that from working with Family Search on imaging projects in the past. We still do those as well, and other things as well.
All righty. Well, thank you. And no, I didn't prompt him to say anything about Family Search. All righty, Charity, you're in the library space. Now, typically, I think about programs for children and youth in libraries. Do you have anything specifically for the seniors and those that are in the aging community?
Actually, most of our programs are for adults, and often primarily senior adults, or those who are at least approaching retirement, empty nesters into retirement. But we've just now started some programming for tweens and teens. But we have some long-standing programs in the local history space, one of which is a partner program with Greenville, Chautauqua, where we have historical interpreters come in and do a first-person, in-costume, in-character presentation, answer questions as that character, and then answer questions as the researcher. Our people get so excited about playing Stump the Presenter. And our big week is coming up in June, so we will have Lucille Ball, Irma Bombeck, Jacqueline Baker, Josephine, thank you. I knew I was going to stumble on one of them, Babe Ruth and Albert Einstein. And so we've moved to 2 performances a day, because one performance we were adding 100 extra chairs, and that was way too stressful and way too airline seating, having been on airlines today. And so most of our seniors like the 3 p.m. show, but then the families enjoy the 7 p.m. show, and it's just a more pleasant experience. And so we've been able to do that partnership. It's fantastic. It's so much fun. It is in person only, because a lot of these the presenters are in actors unions and things, and we can't afford them if we're recording them. But then we also have a brand new initiative in archival outreach, in part funded by the Mellon Foundation. And we are getting an archive van that will have a permanently installed scanner, oral history set up, and it will be going out into the community. The staff member is already there to be running part of that. This goes in partnership with our long-running, about 12 years worth of oral histories that one of our staff members manages. And so we're starting to learn more about the how can we do shorter, not the more academic style oral history interviews. And so it's an exciting place to be. both as the scanning and that staff and volunteers do scanning of yearbooks, and we've got a partnership with the Register of Deeds office for the first 2 series of deed books for Spartanburg County, full color scans. And so we've got a lot of projects going on. Yeah, Sherry's happy. And it's a lot of fun and coordination. And the archivist tells me that whenever we put up a new yearbook or a new group of yearbooks for a different school, all of a sudden the stats on those collections in our historical digital collections skyrocket. And periodically, it must be around a reunion or something like that, because those stats keep coming back around and get very popular at various times. And so people are talking about our yearbooks. They find us because of the yearbooks, and then we hook them on research and genealogy and newspapers and all of the other things that we have to offer.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a curveball now.
Okay.
So when I think about grants, I think about what Michael and Susan Dell have done for education. I look at Bill Gates, and he says he wants to clear out the $200 billion Gates Foundation over the next 20 years or so. Those are youth-oriented. Did you say that the Mellon Foundation gave you a grant for? Talk about that for a moment, if you would, please.
The Mellon Foundation approached our library with a chance to do this archives grant. We were one of a small list of libraries around the country that they approached. They are one of those foundations that, generally speaking, they approach you. You don't approach them. And fortunately, my supervisor's the one who had to do all the grant stuff. I just get the benefit of it and help share the wealth through the team. Various of us have different parts of it. We have some exhibit cases and that kind of thing. But we do apply for these grants and these larger grants. It's how we got the large enough scale book eye scanner that will actually hold a deed book without having to do one page and then flip it around and do the other page for the whole thing. And so it's just one of those things that the grants are out there, but sometimes they come to you. And we had already been doing digitization and getting things online. We were a very weird library. We started with what I call the Big Mama scanner, and it scans blueprints and maps. It's very large format. And the first project they did on that was postcards. Different things, but we have Epson 12 by 18 scanners going to all of our branches through this grant, as well as this outreach van. And so it's just exciting. Slightly off topic, we're also about to open a planetarium. Our library is doing fun stuff.
Yeah.
Should have been a museum, but the museum people didn't sign until 2 years too late. Oh well. The science people have a lot of money. History people not as often with so much money, but we've been fortunate.
Great. I just noticed the dress also with the books on there. So
I'll have a different dress, library themed or genealogy themed each day.
So, John, you've got me curious. I was going to go on to Matt, but you've looked over your shoulder a couple of times. I feel like there's something you want to share with us with what's happening in Missouri.
Well, no, I was looking over my shoulder maybe at her last because I was thinking that this scan van would be wrapped like the Mystery Machine, so and just with different words. So
yep. It's gonna have a fun wrap. It'll be our third outreach van. So
I have so many notes from the previous 2 sessions. I'm just going to drop one on you and let you go to others. I think we need to retire the word retire and replace it with re-thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think is a good takeaway from this and something that we really should consider, because that's what we've been talking about this whole time, is taking seniors and helping them re-thrive. So,
Okay, so here's a question. Charity just mentioned the, how did you say it? Was it super seniors? Is that what you said? You said something.
Somebody said
No, I
super
said it during the when we were
Matt
meeting
said it.
before.
Okay. So the question that I've had on my mind, and any one of the 4 of you can answer this, but do we treat them differently than we do the recent retirees?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that. part of what I do at the moment is volunteer at Ellis Island and Statue of Liberty. And I'm out there each week and helping at the American Family Immigration History Center. So we have a lot of folks coming through from around the world all the time doing searching. It's an interesting experience doing that and helping folks to sort of find what they're looking for. I think it stimulates a lot of people to get involved in genealogy, begin thinking that way. I have my concerns sometimes, though, because, you help them and you find the 25 Maggie Mahones who arrived between 1895 and 1900, and they're sure they know which one that is theirs. But we help them with that and also explain that, with the search, it can be today you'll find an answer or the rest of your life you'll be looking for the answer, but it'll be fun. But the super seniors comes into play is that we're also asked to come to the 92nd Street Y in New York. And they've started a program specifically in genealogy looking at folks between the ages mid-80s and up. And they get full houses, people very engaged, and just want to understand the basics and how to do it and what to do on computers and how to make things happen. And I'm hearing more and more from folks who are doing the training that there are ways to be thinking about it a bit differently with that age group, more of trying to get them to think about their own experiences, reflect on that, and see how they can tie that into the information that they are collecting. And I think it's made it much more meaningful for them as part of those programs. But it's intriguing to me. I wonder whether there needs to be more programs like that so we begin to understand what might be different and how to look at these things a little bit more from a perspective of that super senior type of role.
Interesting. Thank you. Okay, Shelley, you talked about IAAM. It was fun from my perspective to watch it go from the blueprints to the dedication, and we've talked a little bit about that. Are there projects or opportunities that you have to work with the aging community there?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. Well,
Okay, now we'll go on to the next note.
some of them are for general audience, all ages and things. And then I'll mention the ones specifically I think cater for the seniors. Well, coming into the museum twice a day, 11 and at 2, they can walk in, anyone can walk in to the Center for Family History conference room and getting started. And the research assistants are there to answer questions. There's a mini library there. There's iPads and things. And thank you, Family Search, for the partnership and so forth on that. But we have kiosks and things like that that are there. And kiosks, of course, is engaging. You're going to have to touch. And the galleries throughout the museum are like that as well. But also the staff there, and along with myself, we do presentations all over the place. It's just which hat and who are you catering to? Locally, South Carolina, a lot, but it's not just South Carolina, it's international. And so the other thing is I personally do for them our monthly podcast. And every third Saturday of the month, we have various topics. And it's on Zoom, but no, StreamYard. We have a new director there, Brian Sheffy. That is the director of the Center for Family History. And so we're using StreamYard. So one of the things is the interaction with centers, senior centers, institutions. We have scanning days. We go out to the faith community, partner with them, along with genealogy groups and so forth. And we set up for the scanning day. And they can bring up to 10 items, whatever it is. But not only are they scanning, then they can step over and have an interview or just talk. And that could be out in the community. In the center, it's a story booth. A lot of folks walk right by it. Walking in, it's right there on the corner. You can go in there, and a lot of seniors walk in there and they say something. They got a couple minutes. They can talk about themselves or an ancestor or an experience. but we also see the youth going in there as well. So again, I think it was Kurt that said about partnerships. That's the big thing I think that's engaging. We have OGS chapter there. We got family centers there, in the Charleston area that are engaging with us. And then there's groups that bring seniors in. And so we engage with them as well. The big thing that caters really specifically, I'm going to say to super seniors per se, is the Centurion interviews. And they're oral. We hate saying the word oral, but they are folklore, family history interviews, and Whitney Day oversees that part of the project. And so they sit down and they have discussions. And those are online for people to view. They're open for anyone to contact her, to set that up. Because I'm hoping I'll get her to interview my mom, who's going to turn 95 on Saturday, and get her because she's a little different, perspective growing up in Michigan versus something typically in the South. So it'd be a great story. So that's inside the Center for Family History. And they host a lot of groups that come through. Family reunions. And of course, the seniors that are coming in, they're the first ones in there asking questions about things that are within the family center there, because there is a library. They can do research there. People can also book consultations, but that's the only fee related thing is one-on-one consultations online. So that's what we're offering right now. Is that enough?
Hey, I'm loving what I'm hearing. So
There you go.
But here's the question. We set up the programs, and are the results academic, emotional, a combination of the two? What are you seeing there? And this is open to all four of you for that matter.
I don't know if I want to fling academic in there, but I think the emotional and the experience that people that come in to the Family History Center or the Center for Family History, it is an experience, especially if they find something. When you got the research assistants there helping, they'll come in, they'll talk about that community. I'm going to say Somerville, and they're saying, oh, we were there, great grandparents, this, that, and other. They go over to the kiosk and start pulling up stuff about Somerville. And so I think it's more of an experience. And I know we talked before about all of this that we're talking about towards senior has to do with communication and engaging. And one of the other panels talked about, if you just ask them, they will tell. Go ahead.
I love it.
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing, which I guess would not surprise us from the discussion today. But one of the biggest things, and many of you in this room, I can tell, are very involved in organizations and societies and the genealogical organizations in general. But the biggest thing in discussion right now that we're hearing a lot of all the time is the issue of post-COVID. Do we meet in person or do we meet online? And that back and forth. And in so many ways, I'm beginning to realize how much that may be impacted by even the discussions we're having today. People are really sensing that if they don't do it in person, they're losing so much. But how to do that when they gain so much at the same time by doing the online programs that attract people from across the country and they can double the numbers of participants. So it really is an interesting time for us to be having this discussion and also for our societies as they talk about those things. And I guess that kind of comes to my mind about the emotional versus the academic. I think that this is really where that comes down, where the rubber's hitting the road for our organizations. They're doing those programs, they're doing those meetings, but what's the right balance? And how can we do this? And do we have enough volunteers who can make it happen in person? And so it is really interesting that way. And I think it's something for us to ponder.
Thank you.
I think that I would encourage everyone to do a family history approach and not to be academic, not be formulaic with the way that you have these discussions. I'll give a couple of examples of that. One of those is, and this has been a long, long time ago, really before I was formally involved in genealogy, we're going through the family photos at my grandmother's house. I was a naturally curious kid. And so everybody's asking, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And I'm like, what's the dog's name? Why does that house have a hole in the middle? It was a dog trot house. I mean, like, and so they explained, that the kitchen was on this side so that it didn't get hot in the summer. And, they were telling you all of these details. And I think from that, I learned, don't just ask about the people, ask about the bicycle in the front yard that like 3 of my wife's siblings claim are theirs, but she knows it was hers. And that one artifact in the same picture has generated a lot of detailed discussion. Also thinking about veterans, my dad went over a weird thing. I just started when the 1940 census came out. And I just started at the beginning of the township and went through everybody in the township because he went to school with all of them and I'd heard some of these stories. He told a lot of stories that weren't the family stories. He told stories about the kid who lived 3/4 of a mile away, and it suddenly became, and his grandmother was a Dougan, and by the way, then their kids and these folks are their own, like, I think second cousins or something. So like I now know why nobody married anyone locally, because we were married to everyone.
Yeah.
But he took 4 hours and went through the entire township, and he told me stories on 95% of the people who lived within like horse riding distance of where he lived. And so take a different approach. Don't just ask those standard people questions.
Well, and I would say with some of the technology, and this harkens back to an earlier panel, but during the pandemic, I had a very odd thing happen. Local history and the teens were the first 2 online departments in our library.
Yeah.
Nobody else could figure it out. And I almost beat the teens online. And my genealogy classes have shifted to Zoom, and they will continue to be on Zoom. I tried hybrid for 2 years, and last series I had 8 people show up through the 8 presentations, but I had 5 presentations with 0 people in the room with me. It's really hard to talk to an empty room, even though you've got 35 people in the Zoom room.
Right.
And so that has transitioned because a bunch of my super senior regulars and volunteers at the library won't come back for a 7:00 program.
That's right.
They don't drive at night.
That's right.
And when I was offering one on a 7 on Monday night and a 10 a.m. on Wednesday, they'd forget which Wednesday and didn't show up then either. So for me, that has worked better. But our Chautauqua is fully in person. So it's knowing which programs are going to meet which needs, I think, is part of it. But also picking those programs and those topics that encourage collaboration, creative thinking, and not just listening or, watching a video kind of situation. And so it's the thing I find about family history is you're making a lot of puzzle connections. And that's what keeps the brain young in my observation. Now, my mother loves family stories, is not a genealogist, will never be a genealogist because she doesn't think linearly at all. She's an artist. But she, at 82, is taking an art class over YouTube now, or Zoom or something, video. She has figured out the technology to make it work. She can't make her phone work, but she can make that computer work so she can get her technology. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. It's providing the spaces for our seniors and our other patrons, to use the library term, to have the space to be creative and to do the research. I have ongoing arguments with our children's librarians as to who has the better job. We each agree that I have the best job for me and they have the best job for them. And I don't have to work with the little ones. I have a staff member who does our tween programs. I also have another staff member who does a couple programs a month out at nursing homes, primarily in the local history field, because so many of those folks don't have computers accessible to do any research. With all of our online resources, but they love hearing the local stories, and so we cater to that and have people go out.
All righty. Well, thank you for that. Okay, take a moment and go back to ancient history, the first two panels. The first question was, how do aging, isolation, and loneliness affect cognition? And how can we positively assist those impacted? That was the first question. Then the next panel addressed, how can the family history community help our communities and the aging populations? Any thoughts on those before we wrap it up on our question?
I think the partnership and the community engagement is critical. I really do. I think all of us can bring that to the table. And number one, the opportunity to tap into technology. But not only when I mentioned about the scanning days, we also go into communities, these old communities, and engage with them, getting those stories. And I think that's another way, not just looking at maybe the faith community and stuff, just go into a community. And again, I mentioned like Somerville, but there could be the Sea Islands or anything like that in South Carolina. And we've tapped into the little family groups that are trying to document that history. Who did what, when, and where, who was involved. So I think we got excellent time now, more than any time, because of all the other technology and things like that, and to get them engaged. And I think time is running out.
Yeah,
I like that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
I mean, I think we represent up here the I hate to say it this way, but the human institutions, the places where people can touch this area of I hate to say academics or research or to begin learning not only how to do something that brings back memories for them and is complex in a puzzle way of how do you piece all this together, but also provides that emotional interaction between people, because you need to work on these things together. Often it takes your entire family. It takes other people who are doing research on your family who might be a fourth cousin who's going to help you. But I think we really do provide those kind of tentacles that people can grab onto and be brought into this. And I think it is a unique, I was convinced, at least from listening to the last two panels, that we are unique in the way that we can engage people, and that genealogy can engage people, and family history can engage people. So I think that's really what comes down for, at least for me.
Thank you.
Maybe a caveat that I could add to that. We've been talking about memory care and reflective therapy and some of those kind of things. And I was talking to some of my staff members about coming and talking on these panels. And they gave an anecdote of I would say maybe a reflective intervention. So they have a parent who struggles with like current tasks and gets very frustrated with those. And whenever they see one of those episodes happen, they say, "Hey, can you tell me about Uncle Bob and his job?" Or they'll look at a family photo or something, immediately calms them, because it's something they can't remember the present, but they can remember way back. And it really solves a problem that they're having. And then 10 minutes later, they can do whatever it was they couldn't do 10 minutes before. And I don't know whether the first two panel folks can explain that, or the first panel folks can explain that.
Right.
But they have found that to work with a dad who is now beyond really assistance, and a mother that's at the same place the dad was a few years ago. It's a cool intervention. And I think that there are very few things that you can use as an intervention. Music is another one that was mentioned. We sing at nursing homes, and you have nonverbal people who will sing hymns with you for an hour straight. It's amazing. And then they'll have to be pushed back to their room or guided back to their room because they don't remember what room number they're in. So it's truly amazing.
Yeah, and Krista mentioned this earlier about the study about raising emotionally healthy teenagers out of Emory University back a while now. And I think some of those same questions, because we get adults into our research room who can't answer I think it's 21 questions. And it's things like, how did your parents meet? Where did your parents grow up? Where did your grandparents grow up? Those types of questions. And we have to start with those basics with so many of the people who walk into our room and say, oh, is this a new place in the library? No, we opened in April 1997, just like the rest of the library. But we're glad you found us in our little corner. And so walking them through, having them call an older family member or a family member who may be have been more interested in the family history earlier. And so it's just answering those simple questions, but it starts that creative thinking and that putting the pieces together that's so important to healthy aging, whether you're a child into a teenager or whether you are an adult into the next adventure. And so a lot of people come to our genealogy room and do the research as they're transitioning into their so-called retirement, although most of them are busier than most of us working full-time. And so that really does happen. Yeah, we need to thrive instead of retire. I think we need to change that word.
All righty. Thank you very much. Do we have questions from the body? Those that are here or those that are online? Like we have one coming forward.
Quick question. It was Charity's comment about the scan vans that triggered it. So in our world, we work a lot with move managers and home organizers and people that are doing estate cleanouts. And granted, archival processes are tedious and on the worst list of boredom, I understand, and very costly. Do we need a death and destruction hotline? We're working with a family. Here's what it is. Is it of value to anybody before it goes in the incinerator? Because we come across people all the time like, oh, Life magazine photographer for 25 years. These are all the originals. Do you think anyone cares? And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, I think there's people who care, but you also just can't be overburdened. So we see history being erased because people are out of time. They're not thoughtful about what they have and what they're going to do with it next. And I wonder if that's a gap. Is that a gap of history that we're losing?
It is a gap, and I'll let you follow up. But we have a program called Addicts to Archives. That is how our archival collection got started. We received a mandate from the board of directors in 2009 to collect the archival history of the county because no one else was doing it. And so that Addicts to Archives project has been going on, and it comes in clumps, let me tell you.
Do you know, are there others like yours? Has it been emulated?
We may have gotten the idea from the Austin History Center. That was before my time. I've been there since 2014. So, but I know they looked at the Austin History Center and one of the centers in Little Rock, Arkansas, and one other place as they were developing what ours might be. We've finally gotten our first official liaison into one of our communities. We now have an African-American liaison who is going into the African-American community, not as a staff member, but as a pseudo-contract volunteer. And he is interviewing people he knows and starting to get those oral histories in a much more conversational way that he can do as a member of that community that we can't do as staff who did not grow up in that community. So we're working on those grassroots things. But yeah, it is a need, and not all library systems, well, many one of our neighboring systems jettisoned all of their local history and archival and genealogy stuff, dumped it on the local volunteer museum. So, I mean, it just depends on how you can articulate the need and how you can get funding for it.
We have contributions. People upload their photographs, stories, books, all kind of things right online that are available for people to see. So, and it's right on the Center for Family History Museum site page. Photographs is probably number one. And also right now, big mission of the USCT pension records. And so we're hitting a few thousand right now, which will be available for people to view. So we're looking for contributions and those stories that are not going to possibly be on a document. And it's coming from the family. So thank you for that. Thank you for that question.
Collection development policies are super important for our slams, okay? So using her example, we do not need, and I'm saying this universally, we do not need your broken set of Life magazines, that's missing half the issues. Don't need them. The Life magazine photographs that she referenced there, the Missouri State Archives probably also doesn't need those, but we will try and find a very good home for those. What we want is the life stories that are going to go to the dumpster that need to be preserved. And so hopefully that answers a little bit that question.
My one last comment, I guess, on this is I think it's really fascinating. The reality is someone has to care first.
Yeah.
And the difficulty, I think, is that often these are someone who is inherited whatever property, has never done genealogy, and just wants to get it out of the house. And so what's ended up happening is that your local antique store is really the solution that has been come out altogether. But also why I try to support as much as possible those online efforts of trying to take those photographs and other things and trying to trace them back to families, things that are found in antique stores and other places, because they really are out there. I realize it's a small side to this and it doesn't really answer your question, but it really is a difficult thing because do people care? And that's the biggest problem.
All righty. Thank you. Kate, do you have one for us?
We have a couple from Zoom. One is kind of a question and a comment. The question is, how can family history and genealogy contribute to broader history? Commenting on the fact that we've talked a lot about, making things less academic, that sometimes that can be cumbersome, but also sometimes being connected to the broader history community can be important and valuable, may even help with funding in some cases. And specifically asking about things related to people who typically have been underrepresented in history. If any of you have thoughts on that.
Well, I can jump out there first. Go local, whatever it is. Start at the local level. Public libraries, your historical societies, your genealogy groups. Bridge those things together and start having that conversation and sharing, because you'll tap into people that are here in the audience. They'll know what to do with it and where to put it.
I saw something really, really interesting that's happened in Trenton, New Jersey. There's an area that has been literally torn down blocks upon blocks from urban renewal in the 1950s and 60s. And in the center of it is the original Trent House that Trenton was named after, but it's now sitting all by itself. They had the innovative idea reaching out to local genealogical groups to start rebuilding the community. So they've gone back to the fire maps and to the census records and have begun going through 10-year cycles of rebuilding what were the ethnic groups that had come through this part of Trenton, what was the diversity that was there, and really building it up within 10 blocks of the original Trent House, and has created really a fascinating presentation, and they've received some money for it. And I realize it's not totally that innovative, but at the same time, it was really fascinating to think about how much we've lost, especially in urban areas, and what the potential could be for those kinds of things.
All righty. Thank you. And one last question with one last minute. How's that?
That sounds good. We also have a question about people embracing technology and digital communication and tools, and how are organizations working to capture history that may no longer exist in a physical form. What are we going to do with that? How does that affect the future of genealogy and family history and working with the elder population?
That
that's
sounds
okay.
like the next.
Yeah,
next,
the symposium. Yeah, so digital records is a completely different world.
Oh, no.
And in the government sphere, it's more than 50% of what we do. So that is such an expansive question. I don't even know where to start. So, but
put that down for future.
Symposium.
Back to the previous question, though. Good family history is better than academic history in this one way.
Absolutely.
They look at all the sources where the process of academic discovery is they focus on a very small subset of the records, and you get a different outcome by looking at all the sources versus a select set of sources.
Yeah.
All righty.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Shelley, Matt, John, Charity. We appreciate this. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here.